What's up, YouTube? Zazubaar here, and I just want to say a few things about something about the Legendary Pictures Godzilla movie that I have kind of neglected to say over all the videos I've made about it. And it's kind of been on purpose, just because I was never really sure. And that is, what monsters I would like to see Godzilla fight in the new 2012 movie. And I've been avoiding it for a really big reason. The reason is because I was really excited to see this as a Godzilla solo movie. Because Godzilla needs to be reimagined for this generation. And I think that's going to be really hard to do with a monster battle plot in the background. I really think that they should have reestablished Godzilla, his destructive capabilities, and just his backstory in this movie. And just really modernize Godzilla and reintroduce him to modern audiences. Then the sequel should have introduced new monsters for him to fight, advancing the universe that this movie would set up. So now that we're pretty much sure that there's going to be more than just Godzilla in the new movie, we have some ground to go on here on what monsters we might be able to see, but that's not what I'm talking about today. Although I will bring it up when I talk about my choices. I'm gonna just run down a list of monsters I would like to see Godzilla fight, and some monsters that I think should be avoided. And I'm gonna go a lot on what people have been saying on comments on some of my videos, on some of Gorzard's videos, on some of Alzilla's videos, and I'm just gonna kind of run down that list and also just pick out my choices. So this is gonna be what monsters I would like to see in the 2012 Godzilla film, and basically what monsters I wouldn't like to see. So, I think right off the bat, the immediate choice for me is King Ghidorah. Again, I really wanted this to be a Godzilla solo film, but I think if anything, King Ghidorah is the strongest thing you could give Godzilla to fight. Honestly, though, the whole alien plot and just him being a space monster, I think, could be changed. Like, I wouldn't mind a change to King Ghidorah's origin. One of the greatest Godzilla films in the Heisei era for me is Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. And I think if they did what Toho did to King Ghidorah in that film, not necessarily the same backstory, change it to their own liking, but keep the design of the character, the powers of the character intact. Keep it King Ghidorah, but make it a little more believable, a little bit more down to earth. So I really don't want to see a alien pawn King Ghidorah in the 2012 film, if any King Ghidorah at all. Yeah, he's Godzilla's greatest enemy, and the Space Dragon version of him is by far the most famous version. But I really liked what they did with him in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah from 1991, and I think if they went forward with that, or just at least if they were going to do King Ghidorah in the 2012 film, if they based what Toho did with him in that movie, I think it could be really great, and perhaps even work better with reintroducing Godzilla than just doing the Space Dragon thing. Then, of course, immediately after King Ghidorah, everyone jumps to one of three choices: Anguirus, Mothra, or Rodan. Oh god, the three that Godzilla either fights or teams up with. And I'm just gonna talk about that for a minute, because those are by far the most famous three choices here to be seen in this new movie. Mothra first, since usually she's the most popular choice in a monster for Godzilla to fight of those three. Since Anguirus and Rodan he either usually teams up with, or they're minor characters. Mothra is a lot of the time a central aspect of the story. So I'll talk about Mothra first. I don't hate Mothra as a monster. I don't. I think that a lot of the time she's underutilized, or she's not used properly. Like, the stereotype of her is that she's like this girly, fairy, whimsical creature that Godzilla has to kick its ass, and usually, I'm included in this, if you see Godzilla fight Mothra, you want Godzilla to win, and you know Godzilla's gonna win. Mothra vs. Godzilla, excuse me, is another one of my favorites, and, even in that movie where she was the good girl, or she was the protagonist, basically, I wanted to see Godzilla win. And honestly, I don't think Mothra should be done in the new movie, and I'll tell you why. I'm gonna go with the fact that this is trying to reintroduce Godzilla to modern audiences. That I don't know if Godzilla's gonna be taken as seriously if he's seen on screen with a whimsical fairy moth. Sorry, but honestly, I know I'm not usually one to say that popularity or believability should be an aspect in creating a movie, but in Mothra's case, I think it would be a problem, because this movie really has to take Godzilla seriously, and I think if you do Mothra, it's going to be a problem. Unless, of course, again, they redesign the character, but that's hard to do. Even in GMK, arguably her greatest, at least design-looking, even then, she was killed in a matter of minutes, and even she still looks silly and unnecessary. Honestly, I think if they just did Ghidorah and Baragon as the two main monsters, and maybe even just have done Rodan instead of Mothra, I think that could have been good. Because in that movie, she was just kind of there because she was popular. And I think that's the case here, why everyone's jumping to Mothra, because she is one of Godzilla's most famous adversaries, and that's the one everyone jumps to. So honestly, I would definitely try to avoid Mothra, and I don't want to see a Mothra done in this movie, because it's unfortunately going to affect how seriously you can take Godzilla, or at least this Godzilla movie. So now to the two I'm gonna mix together here, Anguirus and Rodan. I do love Rodan, and I do like Anguirus, but the problem is, again, not really taking it seriously as much as characterizing Godzilla here. Anguirus is largely considered to be one of Godzilla's quote-unquote pals, and they only really fought in two movies, Final Wars and Godzilla Raids Again. And in Final Wars, it was because of mind control, so in terms of that movie, we don't know how they were before that, or even if Godzilla encountered Anguirus before that movie. And in Godzilla Raids Again, it was just because, Toho thought it would be fun to see Godzilla fight another monster in a sequel, so... And they just came up with Anguirus because it was a dinosaur, and it was based on a real dinosaur, an Ankylosaurus. So, you know what? Honestly, Anguirus isn't interesting enough for me to see him fight Godzilla alone. And honestly, the tone that this movie has to go for, you really can't do Godzilla as a type of monster who's going to take allies at this point. At most, in terms of seeing him fight other monsters, I think they should do him as an anti-hero at the end, and not as a full-fledged ally with Anguirus, or even Rodan, who I find a lot more interesting than Anguirus, but still, I don't think he as the antagonist of Godzilla could, support a movie. Him and Godzilla doing a battle against a plot really couldn't work for me. Because, not that Rodan would affect Godzilla's, the movie's seriousness. I think actually Rodan might be one of the stronger choices there than some of Godzilla's other enemies, but I don't think Rodan is interesting enough to, carry a battle with Godzilla, or and even just a reboot. So I would go against Rodan, because even Toho, when they created both Godzilla and Rodan, they didn't even put them in a movie together until Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. There was never a Godzilla versus Rodan, because I guess even Toho assumed that it wasn't interesting enough. So they just put Rodan with Godzilla fighting in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, which was definitely a good move. And honestly, if they remade Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster as not the 2012 film, but as a sequel, I think that could really be something good. And then do Rodan and Anguirus. I think you could even replace Mothra with Anguirus, and I would be totally fine with it if they remade Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster as a sequel to the 2012 movie. So, honestly, if there are any other monsters out of the roster that people are bringing up, thankfully everyone's avoiding Mechagodzilla for all the same reason that it would be too soon in a reboot to do Mechagodzilla. Because I think Godzilla has to be around for a while for just Earth to get up the money and the integrity to build a machine like that to fight one thing. And I think in a sequel, Mechagodzilla could be done well. So, I definitely think everyone has the right idea with avoiding bringing up Mechagodzilla as a possible opponent. If anything else for an opponent of Godzilla, I would probably have to go with Destroyer, or, you know, even like something, you know, something along the lines of Orga with a different origin. Again, I think that they should avoid space in this movie. I think they should keep it very Earth-centered, because Godzilla has to be rebooted along with whatever monsters they decide to choose. So yeah, I definitely think they should avoid space. And if they were going to do something like Orga, they should definitely give it a different origin than space. That's just too simple, too obvious, and a little too soon. I think Godzilla should have more earthly threats before anything like Universal comes around. So where Orga leads me to is an original monster. Honestly, guys, I doubt we're gonna see. This is kind of sad, but I don't think there's a very slim chance we're gonna see any Toho monsters fighting Godzilla in the new movie, only because of copyright. Legendary has the rights to make a Godzilla movie, not a Godzilla, Anguirus, King Ghidorah, Rodan team-up movie. And the reason is because to get those characters, they would have to pay to use them for the copyright to those characters, just like they probably had to do for Godzilla. And if you go back to the 1998 Roland Emmerich movie, why the movie was delayed so much was for the exact reason that I don't think we're going to see any Toho monsters rebooted in Godzilla 2012, because of, you know, Toho is going to want money for using both Godzilla and something else like King Ghidorah. Because although King Ghidorah, for the most part, only appeared in Godzilla films, he did technically appear in films outside of it in the 3 Rebirth of Mothra movies, but that was a totally different character, so, you know, I consider that King Ghidorah is a Godzilla monster. So, Toho you'd have to pay for that. So, I think we're going to probably get some original monsters, and for that, I think it's going to be a lot easier to integrate them into rebooting Godzilla than, say, if you did King Ghidorah. Because you can make whatever origin you want, you can connect them to Godzilla any way you want, and I think it would be a lot easier to do that than doing a King Ghidorah versus Godzilla movie and having the whole space thing or something else. I think it would just make things a little more, both easier for Legendary and maybe a little better for fans to see Godzilla rebooted, if he has to fight anything. Now, one thing I heard that I don't think is going to happen at all, and if it does, then just stop giving up all hope here. I heard from, like, maybe 2 people on comments that they heard Monster Island was going to be in the movie. First of all, where's your source? But second of all, no. I mean, you know what? Again, I have a lot of nostalgia for the Showa movies, but Monster Island is, again, just a little too... First of all, it would be way too soon. If Godzilla's going to be rebooted, then you need to reboot him and just focus on, you know, modernizing him first and then bringing all that stuff in, if at all. If Monster Island even needs to be in the Legendary Godzilla movies, if they do turn this into a franchise, then do it like the last movie at the end for like a second as like a cameo thing. Because, again, it's too soon, it's a little too silly, and you know what? I don't think that there wouldn't even be enough monsters in this movie to support that. And even if they don't call it Monster Island, then they just like capture Godzilla and bring him to an island. I think that's, again, too soon, a little too silly, and just not what the movie should be focusing on. The movie really needs to focus on Godzilla as the central character, focus, story, and everything. And the monsters that he fights need to revolve around him, because he is... his name's in the title. His name is going to be the title, so... the movie needs to be about him first, and then the other monsters should come as supporting him. And that's why I think King Ghidorah's origin would have to be redone, because with the exception of the 91 remake of Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Godzilla usually is just there to kill King Ghidorah, to stop him. And that's not where the movie focus should be. I hope I finally answered that well. I meant to make this video a long time ago, but I just think now my head is a little clearer on this subject after getting almost every Godzilla movie on DVD and seeing a lot of these monsters again, that I can determine what monsters I'd like to see. So, King Ghidorah, if his origin was changed a little bit from space to something else, I would love to see King Ghidorah. Anguirus and Rodan should be with Godzilla, not as, as enemies, but I think that there needs to be another threat than just Anguirus and Rodan. They're not interesting enough to just fight Godzilla in its own plot. Mothra, I don't think should be done in this movie just fighting Godzilla, because it's going to affect the seriousness, and it's going to affect rebooting Godzilla. Again, Mechagodzilla, thankfully no one's been mentioning him, and just it's too soon to do Mechagodzilla. So, that's really all I have to say on the subject. Just keep watching the internet for more information on the Legendary Pictures Godzilla movie. And just a last-minute update on ZMMR, The Thing review. I know it's been a long time since the Cloverfield review came out, and a lot of you guys have been waiting very patiently for The Thing review, and I really appreciate that. My life has basically been a shitstorm since the Cloverfield review came out of, finals and just stuff I have to do. So, once school finals are over, I will devote myself to getting that Thing review done. I'm more than halfway done writing it, and once finals are over, I can devote myself to it, and that's what I really want to do here. So, thanks everyone for your patience, and I hope that this video kept you tided over for any new information on the Legendary Pictures Godzilla film. So, again, keep watching the internet, and thanks to everyone for subscribing. I have 165 subscribers now, so thanks to everyone who subscribed. So thanks a lot again. Zazubaar out.